Hello and welcome again to RC Model Reviews on YouTube, and today I've got the AXN, or to give it its full name, the AXN Clouds Fly Floater Jet. And I think we'll just call it the AXN from this point on because that's such a enormously long name. The video would probably be half an hour longer than it will be. So it's the AXN, and why do I like the AXN? Because to be totally honest, this is my favourite model at the moment. It has been my favourite model for quite some time. The reason is it's cheap. I mean, you can pick these up from about 40 bucks on the internet, plus the freight. It's incredibly durable. I've crashed my one into the tower, and I've crashed it into the drain, and crashed it into people. I mean, it's made of EPO, and a very strong EPO. So when you hit something, most of the time it just bounces off, and after it's set in the sun for a couple of minutes, it's good as new. A little bit of glue perhaps from time to time, but brilliant in terms of durability. Now, the other thing is that they are quick to build. I'm going to put this one together this afternoon. It'll probably take me about an hour, but the video hopefully will be shorter than that. And of course, they're easy to fly. Anyone can fly an AXN Clouds Fly Floater Jet because they're very stable, but when you want to, these things fly like a rocket. So we fly these in the middle of summer. They'll thermal soar. I've had 15 seconds of engine run give me 15 minutes of flight time because you hook a thermal and you're away. But you can also fly them in the worst weather possible. I've flown it in the rain. I've flown it the other day in 60-kilometre-an-hour winds, which gave it a ground speed of 110 miles an hour when flying downwind. So they're incredibly fast, incredibly strong, incredibly versatile models. But enough singing the praises. What I'm going to show you now is how to build what I think is the best version of this model. And that's not the one that comes with the servos and the speed controller and everything installed, because the speed controller in that version and the plug-and-play version, it's not that good, to be totally honest. The BEC is only 2 amps, and you need more than 2 amps to really drive the 4 servos that you're going to put into this plane. 2 amps. We had a few of the AXNs here, the ready-to-fly ones, and they get a bit spazzy, to be totally honest. The servos go crazy sometimes if you use all the controls at once, and it's not good. It's very marginal with that speed controller, the BEC and that speed controller. So I recommend you don't buy the plug-and-play version with all the servos installed, because we've had some servo failures too. The servos they ship with the plug-and-play model are not the highest quality. So what I recommend is you buy the version that just has the motor and the airframe, and you add your own servos and your own speed controller that you buy elsewhere, or from the same shop, because I buy mine from Hobby King because it's the most cost effective. But you can buy servos elsewhere. Find yourself a nice reliable 9 or 10 gram servo that you've used before and you're happy with, and a nice reliable 20 to 30 amp speed controller, and use those instead of the rather cheap ones that come with the plug-and-play version. So enough of that. Let's get on, let's do a build. I'm going to show you what you need to do this build. And first of all, you're going to need a hot glue gun. We'll use this to basically hold in the servos, because we can use double-sided tape, but they fall out with double-sided tape. We've tried that, and you'll be flying along and suddenly, that's odd, I don't have any real aileron control, and you find your servos falling out because the double-sided tape just doesn't stick well enough. You're going to need some fiberglass tape, and this is the unidirectional fiberglass sticky tape. That's really handy because it stops a bit of flex in the airframe, and also if you put it underneath, you can land on tarmac if you want to, and it won't wear out the foam. You're going to need 4 9 or 10 gram servos, and as I say, I like the little Hobby King orange 10 gram servos. They're cheap as beans, and they just seem to work so much better than many of the other budget price servos on the market. So the orange Hobby King ones get my tick of approval. Although, as I say, if you've got other 10 or 9 gram servos you're happy with, use those. And you're going to need a speed controller, and I believe you can't have too much speed control. I use the 25 to 30 amp speed controllers, again, that Hobby King sell because they're nice and cheap. Now, I've used the Super Simple series, and I think they're actually a bit better than the blue one. This is one of the blue ones. I didn't have Super Simple in stock when I ordered, and I only got a little bit more speed out of my AXN with the Super Simple series, the 25-30 amp Super Simple. But I'm going to put the 30 amp in here because they've run out, and these work pretty much as well. I mean, it's a coin toss. I think marginally faster with the Super Simple, but the blue ones, they work just fine as well. You're also going to need, of course, a battery, because they don't come with a battery, and I like the Zippy batteries. I've had great run with my Zippy batteries. They're now over a year old, and they're only just starting to show signs of getting a bit tired. That's a 2200 3-cell battery. You can use the Turnigy battery. I've got those. They work well too. And just 20C is all you need. You don't need a high C battery. Don't waste your money on a 30C or a 40C, because these things don't draw a lot of current under 20 amps. So in theory, a 10C would work, but 20C seems to be about the sweet point on pricing. There's a lot of competition in the 3-cell 2200 20C marketplace, so you can pick up these batteries really, really cheaply. So you can either get the Zippy or the Tenergy or your favorite LiPo. Get a couple of packs, because you'll be flying this thing so often you'll just want to have another pack charged by the time you come down and land it. And that's it. Of course, you'll need a receiver, and I'm going to put, building this for someone else, I'm putting in one of the Hobby King 6-channel receivers, which fit very nicely. My own AXN has the FreeSky 4-channel, works brilliantly. I can fly that to the limits of visibility, never missed a beat. So let's get on, let's have a look at what's involved in building this baby. Here is the box, and as you can see, this one's had a bit of a ding in transit. That's quite normal. I mean, coming from China, stuff gets really abused. Now I've got to take my little sharp knife here and cut open the tape that's holding it together. And in fact, it actually sits this way. It has a handle on here, which is really handy, I suppose, but the box actually opens this way. So I'll give you a full tour of the box, and we'll cut through the tape that's holding it together. I think there's anything on the ends. Right. So now we lift it up, and they actually do not do bad a job of packing these things. So it's unlikely, even if it gets quite a bit of abuse, it's rather unlikely that you're going to end up with any damage. So here's what you get inside. You see, it has this the wings here and the rods and all that sort of stuff, and you can actually squash this up an awful lot before there's any damage to the model. So let's take the bits out and have a look. They all come out on this nice piece of wood here, not wood, nice piece of cardboard. So I'll get rid of the actual box itself. Goodbye, box. There you go. And here are the various bits and pieces held together with sticky tape, of course. I'll just cut through the tape so we can get at the bits, and we'll see what we get for our money with the AXN. Now this is the wing tube. It's not carbon, it's only plastic, but trust me, it's more than strong enough for the job. And you get a nice wing tube there. I'll try not to knock too much onto the ground as I do this. We have the tail section. That's the vertical stabilizer, horizontal stabilizer, and its own bubble wrap. I'll just cut that open now because I'll get rid of all the packing. We don't need all this packing material. It just clutters up the build space, which is very small in this video because I'm working on my tiny little table. That's the vertical, that's the horizontal. And the fuselage, of course, is stuck to with tape. Let's cut through there. And the fuselage comes, again, it's all bubble wrap, so even if the package has had a bit of a ding or two, it shouldn't be too bad inside. I'll just open this up because there are bits in here we need to look at. Excuse me while I do this out of shot, but I'm trying to get this done in a very short space of time. So here we go. Right. The bubble wrap is off. As you can see, the film just, there we go. So there's, with the version that I've got here, and as I say, this is the ARF version with the motor already mounted, but there's no servos or anything in there. I'll just lift the hatch off. You see there are no servos in there. One thing I've noticed, very important, some of these when I've got them have been shipped, and during the shipping, the little grub screws, the little tiny little grub screws in there that hold the wire in this thing, sometimes those grub screws rotate out and roll around inside. So if you're missing one, be very careful with the box and the packing. It may be lying around inside, and also check that it hasn't got stuck on the motor, because I've had a couple have got stuck to the magnets on the motor. This one looks pretty damn good actually. It looks like some reasonably good nick. You can see the push rods are already fitted, which makes life nice and simple. The motor's already mounted. All we've got to do really is put in our servos, our speed controller, because we have just the wires to the motor. So we're going to have to solder it, and you're going to have to solder up a speed controller, that speed controller I showed you earlier, to solder that up. So if your soldering skills aren't good, you might want to get someone else to do that, but trust me, it's pretty damn simple. Not really rocket science. That's the fuselage, and of course the other big bit is the wing. And if I can get it undone, because they do such a wonderful job of taping all this stuff together. There we go. One wing, and then we have another wing. And another wing, there we go. I'll throw this away. Make sure there's nothing else on there. So that's that. And we also have a little bag of accessories here. Now these accessories include 2 propellers, in case you break one, although I don't think you will because the motor is well out of harm's way. Some glue, and unlike most of these Chinese ARFs and kits, that glue is really good, so use it. Don't be tempted to use epoxy or anything, because epoxy won't stick as well to this EPO. And remember, I'm doing a video at the moment, well, I'm preparing to do a video at the moment on which glue is best. So in this case for the AXN, the glue that comes in the kit is the best glue to use. It works really, really well. So in this, we've got 2 propellers. These are 5x5 props, I think, or 5¼ by 5¼ some sleeves to fit on the shaft so that it all fits on the motor nicely, a Y lead, a couple of O-rings, and some little short extensions, which if you buy the servos that I recommended, that's the Hobby King 10 grams, you won't need those little short extensions, so you can keep them for, I don't know, something else. There's also some of those little terminal posts in there. These are for the aileron servos, and there's 2 push rods, 1 for each aileron. So that's the bill of materials that you get inside your AXN, and as I say, this bubble wrap should have kept everything nice and safe. I'll open it up and have a look. I'm pretty sure it is. Never had any problems yet. There we go, there's a wing. And what you get with the wing, you notice there's a piece of tape across here. It's because there's an insert here. I'll just remove the tape so we can get at it. Ooh, easier said than done. Now you see there's an insert which goes here because the wing tube will fit in here, and we glue the wing tube in there, and this fits over the top, so it's all nice and aerodynamic. So now we've got all the bits out. Let's have a look at putting this little baby together. I forgot to mention that you also get this lovely little booklet, and it's really about as useless as teats on a bull. It shows you all the bits that you're supposed to get, and you can do a little inventory check against this list if you want to. And inside it even has the names of the parts in case you don't know what a wing is. Nice of the Chinese to keep us informed. Has a kind of a build sequence which you can sort of follow step by step. You can't go too far wrong, but it doesn't explain a lot of the detail, like when you put these wings together. Are you supposed to glue that tube in? Are you supposed to glue the wings in? What are you supposed to do? So I'm going to hopefully show you the way that I put them together. May not be the best way, but it certainly seems to work, and you can follow along. If you've got your own AXN, you want to build it up, then you can follow the steps that I go through. First thing to do is to get your little bag of accessories and wires and things. Don't open it and tip it all out because you'll lose bits, trust me, you will. Just get out the glue. The glue is the bit we need next because we're going to glue the horizontal stabilizer and the vertical stabilizer to the fuselage. This is a piece of cake because there's little slots here. It's really hard to get it wrong. But one thing to do before you glue anything together is exercise the hinges. Now the hinges are made by simply the way the foam is cut. So it's actually just foam in here that does the hinging. And as they come, they're really, really stiff because the foam is quite thick. So you have to actually bend it backwards and forwards enough times to what we call exercise it. And then it should be a lot easier to move. You might want to do that maybe, a couple of dozen times to exercise the hinge line. Same goes with the elevator. If you don't do that, then your servos will struggle to move the elevator. And once it's on there, it's much harder to do it. So you'll hear it creak a little bit sometimes. Don't bend it back more than 90 degrees. So just, I'll try and get the angle on the camera. That's probably enough. And then backwards and forwards, and you'll feel it free up really easily. Once it starts going, you'll feel much freer. You can actually move it with your fingertip, whereas before it was way stiff. So I'll bend it out to 90 degrees and back again. And as I say, do it maybe a couple of dozen times if you need to, until that feels nice and free. Now I'll tell you right now, right from the start, this will crack. Doesn't matter what you do, you'll end up with a crack along here if you fly your AXN long enough. Don't worry about it. These hinges, I consider them to be temporary. Now I suppose if you're really, really keen, you might want to replace, rip this off and hinge it properly, but I don't bother. Because when these start to crack, and you'll see that they'll break a lot, start to crack along the end, just put some tape on it. Just get some tape, or you can do what I did, hot glue. I ran some hot glue along here, very thin layer of hot glue. That seems to have held up really well also. So you don't want to overthink it, you just want to get it free enough that you know that the servo's going to move. That one's freed up very nicely. We'll be doing the same with the ailerons later because the ailerons have the same problem. They're just a hinge cut out of the foam. What we have to do here is basically fit the horizontal stabilizer and the vertical stabilizer to the fuselage. Now, if you look very closely, you'll see that there is a groove cut out in here. See if I can get on the camera, the angles aren't very good. There's a groove cut out in there, and there's also on the bottom of the tailplane a little divot that pokes into that groove. So we can slide this on quite easily, I hope. There we go. So that slides on reasonably easily and it'll stay not too bad. But then the vertical stabilizer will actually sort of key it all together like so. So at this point it's all actually quite rigid. I can, give it a good wobble, nothing falls off. But what you've got to do here is, because it's Chinese and it's made to a price, it may not fit perfectly. There may be a little bit of slop in there, and also it may not be totally square if you're looking from the back. So just eyeball it up, make sure it's all going together reasonably well before you glue it. So do a dry fit everything together temporarily, and then if it all looks pretty good, you can start gluing it, and that's where your little tube of Chinese glue comes in. So then you pull it apart and get your glue out. Now this glue is a kind of a contact adhesive, and of course you have to use the end of the tube to rupture the seal on the glue. There you go, it'll all pee out, so get ready. because it'll go everywhere. It's been under pressure. But it's a kind of a contact adhesive, so you put a bit on each side and then you put it together. But unfortunately, if you're going to be sliding stuff in, you can't do that. It's a little bit of tricking around to get this to work dead right. But what we'll do is we'll put it on the, you see there's a curved surface there, put it on the surface, put it on the tail, and then we'll put it together like so. And you can be reasonably frugal with the glue, although remember, I use a reasonable amount. Try not to get it on the push rod there because it'll jam up later and you don't want that. So I put a bit of glue on there and a little bit into this divot. But again, don't let it get on. There's an elevator push rod here. Don't let it get onto the push rod or you'll be kicking yourself later. Now put that bit on there and do the same on the tail. So you put the glue on both surfaces. That's reasonably important to get a good adhesion. And you'll find with your finger that it starts to get quite sticky, and do a good job of spreading it out. If it doesn't reach the right place, it's not going to glue. Try and get it off your fingers before you start putting stuff together, because otherwise you'll have sticky fingerprints all over the model. So there we go. I shall now slide this onto here, push it together. That's looking good. And as I say, it's a semi-contact adhesive, so it will start to stick immediately, but it won't actually stay down. If I look from the side, I can see it's not actually fitting the little in here. There's a bit of a gap, but hopefully that'll disappear when we put our fin in and we can hold it together for a little while. So I'll just put that there. Now put some glue on the fin as well, and it comes up the front here, so I have to glue up the front where it's going to go. In fact, I'll put it on here because it's probably safer, isn't it, than getting it in the wrong place. And it goes in here, so a bit down the side, of there. Then smooth it around with your finger so it's everywhere. Like so. Oh, I'm out of shot, sorry about that. Wipe my finger, and now again get the glue off your fingers, because otherwise you have glue all over your plane. Then this should just slot into here. There you go. And this will push it down nice and tight before it goes off and sticks in the wrong place. And there you go, that should be nicely glued up. And it pays to just keep a bit of pressure on this for a few minutes until the glue has stuck enough or cured enough that it's not going to pop off. Okay, so that's the tail. I'll hold this for a few minutes. You won't have to watch because I'll cut to the next scene now. Now put your fuselage aside for a moment, because we're going to be working on the wings. And as you saw before, there was a little styrofoam or EPO insert that sits in here, but the wing tube kind of sits in the middle of it all. And as you can see, the wing tube will lay in here, and that little styrofoam or little insert will go over the top like this, and that will hold the wing tube in. Now, there are a number of ways you can do this. I tend to do one wing first, and then it's done and I slide it together. But the most important thing, which I haven't mentioned yet, is when you glue this tube, you've got to rough it up with a bit of sandpaper. This plastic here, you need a key on it. So the best thing to do is to get a bit of a reasonably coarse sandpaper and rough it up so that it's got a good surface for the glue to key to. And then when you glue it in here, it won't just pop off. The glue bond won't just break. But we've also got to put our servos in here. And so I'll get one of our servos, and that is here, but we won't put that in, we won't screw it or glue it in yet, but we'll just lay it in here so you can see where it goes. And the wire comes out one side, and there's a little track for the wire here. It's a shame that they don't go in this way with the wire out there, because the push rods for these servos are not really long enough, not quite long enough. They will, but you've really got to try hard to get it all to fit. Now you can see when you put it together, that's how it goes. Servo pops in this little hole here, and actually stays in quite well on its own. These 10-gram Hobby King ones are just the right size, because it's quite a firm push in there that they don't fall out like the smaller ones might. And then the servo will run along here. And then also when this little strip goes on that we had before, you notice the strip has got a space in here for the servo wire. So when we put it all together, if I get it the right way round, then the servo wire will actually be nicely retained, and it'll disappear basically. It gets all covered up by this. It leaves a nice, relatively smooth surface to the bottom of the wing. That's all contained in there. Now, you can glue the strip in, of course, but then if you need to change servos, it's a real pain in the backside. So what we do is we only glue the wing tube to the top of the wing, and we hold this on with tape. So if ever a servo packs up, you just peel the tape off, and you can remove this piece here, change the servo, put the new servo in, put that back on there, and away you go. It's really simple. It saves having to try and get this out once it's glued in. And it doesn't seem to affect the strength. We fly ours like that. Never had a wing fold yet, and we really hammer the damn things.